Well, there we have it. What a start to the World Cup for England, getting it underway against Argentina in Marseille in a really interesting game. Not a great game from a neutral's perspective, certainly, and it definitely became even more of an arm wrestle because of the early red card. But I'm going to get into all of that in this video. But I think this overall is a hugely positive start for England, and boy, will we talk about Argentina, because I thought they were incredibly poor as well. So drop a comment down below. Let me know what you made of it. Let me know what you made of the Tom Curry red card decision as well. But then more importantly, the result and how England went about getting that result after they had that early red card. So lots to get into. Make sure you like the video and subscribe to the channel. And let's get into it. So I'm here in Marseille. I was at the game. I've just come down a couple of levels and tried to find somewhere quiet to be able to record this video, because there's lots still going on out there on the pitch with the players and fans still there, and the England fans, as you would imagine, absolutely loving it, because Tom Curry early on in the game gets a yellow card. It gets upgraded to a red card. So England were playing, I think I made it, 76 minutes? 76, 77 minutes with a man down. It got upgraded to a red card. And the incident itself, England kicked it forward. The Argentinian player came down with it. Tom Curry went in upright, head on head. In the letter of the laws of the game, I can understand how they reached the decision of red card, but I think it was probably another example of where we saw the confusion in rugby at the moment. And I was following, I was in the stadium obviously, but chatting to friends who were watching the game on TV back home, and they had the incident with Santiago Carreras, who got a yellow card which wasn't upgraded to a red card. And one of their arguments to me was Tom Curry has tried to make a legal tackle on the man who's carrying the ball. He's just got it a little bit wrong and he's been red carded, whereas Santiago Carreras has made a challenge on the player who hadn't had the ball as George Ford kicked it away. He's clattered him in the air, but it's still only a yellow card. And it's maybe quite a good example of where it is confusing for fans at time exactly how we reach those decisions. I think you do feel sorry for Curry, just because, you know, he's clearly just trying to make a legal hit. He gets it maybe a little bit wrong. It's difficult to be able to judge where the ball carrier is going to land, and it's a red card. Hopefully he doesn't receive too much further punishment, but from an England point of view, they responded brilliantly. So England give away that penalty. Curry gets red carded or yellow carded and then upgraded to a red card. Argentina kicked the 3 points when that happens, and then it took them until the last minute of the game to get another point on the board, which also talks about Argentina, and I will get onto them. But England's change in game plan I thought was excellent. Their kicking game was brilliant. Argentina just didn't seem to be able to get the ball back. How many times did England box kick it or put a contestable kick up and it came back on their side? And they dominated possession and they dominated territory. And I think George Ford marshalled that performance, really. Drop goals are now back in fashion as well, it would seem. 50-metre drop goal from George Ford. 3 drop goals in the game. They clearly had a slightly different game plan, I think, once they got that red card, just to chip away at the scoreboard. They got themselves in front 12-3 at halftime and just continued it after halftime as well. So it was probably, for me, that's probably one of the most encouraging things actually from the game, is England faced with a really tough position, having come into the World Cup not in good form, to go a man down so early and just be able to execute a game plan, to be able to problem solve out on the pitch and deal with the problems they were faced with, and actually in the end have a really comfortable victory. I think that was massively impressive. George Ford, the man of the match. It does open an interesting conversation about what happens when Owen Farrell does return, because, as I say, even in the defeat to Fiji at Twickenham, I thought George Ford was one of the England players really trying to drive that team on, really trying to drive standards. So I was impressed with him. And England fans, let me know how you're feeling. I mean, I was pretty negative about them coming into the game, coming into the World Cup. How does this alter it for you? And maybe we do have to throw in a bit of context here, and that is obviously Argentina, who were, I thought, awful. As I say, they went 3-0 up, Curry goes off the pitch. After that, it took them until the 79th minute before they got another point on the board. They were inaccurate, they knocked it on. They were ill-disciplined. They allowed England to dominate the ball and to dominate territory. Michael Cheika, I would imagine, will be absolutely fuming from that performance. They just didn't put England under any pressure. And I was sat in the press box and I was trying to think, when was the last time I saw a team have a man advantage for that long in a game and fail to put their opponents under any sort of pressure? You've got to remember, this is an England team who have been leaking points and leaking tries over the last month or so. And they kept them out until the 79th minute. So outstanding from England. Energy into their game that we haven't seen for a while as well. But from an Argentina perspective, I mean, how bad? How bad? One final point to say as well on Argentina. We were sat next to in the press box Charlie Morgan from The Telegraph, so it was his comment. I won't steal it as my own, but he said, is there any team in world rugby you would rather go down to 14 men against than Argentina in terms of how they're going to try and approach the game? They didn't really try and stretch it wide or attack England particularly, partly because of the inaccuracy and all the things that I've just mentioned, but also it's just not really their game plan. Maybe that did help England a little bit, so I thought it was quite a good point from Charlie, really. Still some causes for concern for England. Let's not get too carried away. The attack, didn't cross for a try here. George Ford, brilliant with the boot. They had that one opportunity in the first half where they turned the ball over and all of a sudden it looked to open up to the right-hand side. They ended up quite literally running out of the pitch. And it looked a little bit to me like a team who isn't particularly comfortable in their attack at the moment. I think that is still a cause for concern, particularly if we're looking later in the tournament. This victory means that it would take quite a remarkable collapse for England to not make the quarterfinals. So once they get to the quarterfinals and the knockout, does their attack just need to be in a little bit of a better situation? Oh, and actually, one really important point I didn't touch on with the Curry red card is forget about the debate of whether you think it should be a red card or not. This is an England team that are continuing to not execute their tackles in the way that they should do. Now, is that coaching? Is that players' discipline and execution? But another red card, even though I know the intentions weren't bad, for me, that's probably the concern to come out of it. Rather than whether was it a red card, wasn't it? The fact that, again, an England player doesn't have their tackle technique quite right, and at this level, and the way the game's being officiated, it means that they're getting players sent off. That is a real issue. I mentioned Owen Farrell already in the conversation about George Ford and who starts when Farrell's back. Vunipola's another one. Back row I thought looked excellent today. Ben Earl, I know a lot of people have been really critical of him for the way in which he over-celebrates those kind of small moments in the game, those big wins, as a lot of people, or most people probably wouldn't see it, but he does. But he is an energy giver. He does provide a spark into that team for the energy he injects into them, and I thought he was very, very good once again today. Probably needs to kick the ball a little bit less. But he was another bright spark. And the final point I want to finish the video on is England fans, how does it change the way you're behind this team? Now, obviously, I was here in stadium and it felt to me like an England fan base that were massively behind the team, which obviously has not been the case at all. Obviously, players or fans spend literally hundreds, thousands of pounds to come over and watch the team. They're going to get behind them when they're here. So I'm interested, for those of you sitting at home, how encouraged are you by this performance? Do you feel more behind? Do you feel more galvanised and encouraged by this side, having seen this opening win? Look, fascinating 80 minutes, not the most entertaining game, and certainly we're going to see some better games this weekend, including here, where I'll be back tomorrow for Scotland against South Africa. But England are up and running with a performance that might not have been flashy, but I think in terms of the resilience they had to show was absolutely pivotal. So drop a comment down below, let me know what you made of it. Stick a thumbs up on the video, and also make sure you subscribe to the channel. I'm going to go out amongst it, get amongst the fans and get some of their thoughts. But I look forward to reading yours. I'll see you in the next one.